Awesome. Thank you, Allison. Hello, everyone, and thank you for giving me your time today. I am so excited to be talking about PR and how you can get started. And as Allison mentioned, you've probably already started doing PR and you don't even know it. So I'll give you a little bit of intro of who I am. I'm Nancy. Obviously, it says it on the title. So I have over 5 years of experience in PR and marketing. I had my start in film PR, did it for 2 years, really learned like the foundation of PR and working with really huge companies like Comcast, Universal, Paramount Pictures. I wanted to live my LA dream of working with movies, and it was really great. It definitely gave me the tools and building blocks I needed to understand PR and how powerful it could be. After that, I moved on to more of consumer PR. I went on to go to a startup that was focusing on astrology PR, which was super exciting. So if you have any astrology questions, I got you. I had to really take a deep dive into that world. So it was really exciting. And after that, I landed at Rebellious, where I'm at now. And at Rebellious, I work with underrepresented founders and help them tell their stories. It's been super duper exciting. I work in the sexual wellness space with tech, apps, B2B. I got you. I try to dip my toes into a lot of different things, and it's super exciting. I always love a challenge, and I love being able to tell stories and land a few placements while I'm at it. One of my proudest achievements is getting our client, Cute Little Fuckers, a non-binary sex toy created by a queer disabled person, onto Hello Giggles, Well and Good, Paper Magazine. That one was incredible. Refinery 29, and then internationally as well, we were able to get them into this German media outlet, and that created so many sales in Germany, which was incredible. And sometimes, as I take you through this, PR is all about patience and it's all about relationship building, and relationships take time, and sometimes it's hard and like it's frustrating because you're like, I don't know if I'm seeing any results. But when you see like the impact that these placements get, like that feeling is incredible. So I hope to leave you with a little bit of like patience and knowing that you'll be able to get these press hits, but you need to have a little bit of patience and like understand the media landscape. I'm based in LA, and when I'm not reaching out to journalists, I'm either hiking or at the beach. And yes, that is me. So let's get started. The what and why of PR. So I graduated with a bachelor's in marketing, and I came into PR really like not understanding it and just saying, why do we need PR? But being just in the middle of it and understanding the importance of it and how it works with like every facet of your business has been just mind-blowing. So why PR? Why do we need it? Well, you have a story to tell. Everyone has a story to tell, right? You created your business because you're solving a problem. And how are you going to tell that story, right? So PR is essentially the communication you have outside of your company. It's what your consumers see. It's what media sees when you do start pitching. It's that communication that you have with investors. What do you want them to take from your company? What's the keyword that you want them to think about when you mention your company and when you're introducing them to it? One thing that I've learned specifically here at Rebellious, and that it's helped me with PR, is figuring out your messaging and really owning your story. And that has a few steps to it, whether it be for marketing or even social media, or even like any outward facing sort of situation you're at, and when you're talking, giving your elevator pitch, you're being your own publicist because you're communicating about your brand there. So some thought starters for y'all is, what do you want people to associate with your brand, right? Like, so start thinking about these things as we go through this. What feelings do you want to evoke? What kind of associations do you want when people think and see your brand? Who's your target market? That is so crucial. Knowing your target market and knowing where they're at is essential and so strategic in terms of like, okay, if my target market is someone who's on their phone a lot, we need to be able to reach them on social media and reach them where they're at. Are they on Twitter? Are they on TikTok? Are they on Instagram? Or are they the type of people that consume a lot of media? Okay, who is our target outlet? Are they going to be reading the news? Are they going to be seeing us in the Wall Street Journal? Are they going to be seeing us in the bustles of the world? Or are they going to be more of in a niche publication or more of a zine? Or are they ones that like watch TV? We need to get a placement on broadcast. Yeah, and like really tapping into understanding who your consumer is to know what outlets we're going to be going after. So that is why PR is so important. We're going to go into developing your story. So if you have a pen and paper, or like I'm going to be asking a few questions, and if you want to put the answers on the chat just so that we could get a little interactive here, I would really appreciate it. So one thing that we do as publicists is we always start with the messaging. So maybe some of you already have this, and it's more so the brand overview, your mission, elevator pitch. This is all part of the building blocks of building your story and building a great pitch. So one thing that I want you to think about, and if you want to put it on the chat, let me know. I will definitely be reading it. What message do you want to land with your target audience? Whether it be for your businesses, for your consumers, for anyone that you want the attention of. Like what are like the messages that you want to leave? What is something that you want them to remember about you? This is super important because it helps you craft your story. I know that in building your brand, you have to think about like, oh, target market, what is our purpose? And this takes a deeper dive into like, okay, cool. So I created this product. What is my mission? My mission could be, oh, I want to solve a problem by creating this product that isn't really available in like this part of the country, or like I'm solving a problem. That's your mission. What's your elevator pitch? Elevator pitch is like a 30-second thing that you tell people. If someone tells you, okay, what's your business? Oh, snap. And you only have 30 seconds to grab their attention. This is so helpful because it will help you in terms of like if you're talking to a journalist and they're like, oh, could you tell me a little bit more about your brand? Oh, perfect. Here's my elevator pitch. And it has to be something snappy, something that catches their attention, that gets straight to the point. So if any of you, I know a lot of you already have your brands. If you want to share your elevator pitch, let me know. I'd love to read it. Yeah, so this is going to help develop the story. Ooh, is a luxury swimwear brand we're tapping into? Ooh, Alex, that sounds really cool. I've seen a lot of swimwear brands really take off in the recent years. Ooh, Julie, can protect their businesses and brands. Ooh, I like that. Yeah, so essentially like keeping in mind elevator pitch and knowing how that fits into the broader picture and in how it fits into your story is really important. What are your values, right? Ooh, look, I love all these participants. Thanks for sharing. Butter love. Ooh, rooted in self-love. Harmony between healthy skin, emotional well-being. Oof, this is really great. Oh, Nora, I create scroll stopping content for brands with purpose. Oh, I love that. That's a great elevator pitch because then people will be like, okay, if they're thinking about you, they're like, oh my God, I need to reach out to her because she does like this great content, right? Tone is huge. Depending on your company, your tone is going to be very different. Let's say if you're working in cybersecurity, your tone is going to be a little bit more serious. What do you want to establish? You want to establish trust. You want to establish being able to be approachable and helpful, right? Whereas if you're a product, depending on the type of product, You want to establish a sense of like, hey, we're here for you. We're here to make you feel great. Like one, Butter Love, a great example. Your tone is welcoming, embracing, approachable, someone that is going to make me feel, a product that is going to make me feel good. So that is tone. And then values, what is it that your company stands for? And in the values are super important also when you're crafting your story, because as you're writing your pitch, those values are going to be key words that you want to put in there and that you want to associate with your brand. In terms of another thing, which is one of the most crucial ones as we're doing research and as we're building out our story, is what problem are you solving? Yeah, there's so many different swimwear brands, but what is so different about this swimwear brand, right? There's so many different skincare brands. What is your skincare brand doing that isn't available anywhere else? It could be so many different things. Like there's always going to be something unique to your story. So don't get discouraged. This is just something to think about, because reality is competition is so tough out there. And there's so many people who, or so many huge companies that are pushing so much money into their marketing that are obviously going to take up more space. And when it comes to PR, like the more unique it is and the more you find that specific angle that's going to grab the journalist's attention, the better. So yeah, think about, okay, what problem am I solving? Why? And that could be going back to like your target market, right? Like maybe this market doesn't have these things. Like maybe this swimwear brand isn't really doesn't appeal. I'm thinking about one of our clients, actually, they're a plus size activewear brand, right? And they specifically have a niche. It's large through 7XL. Why? Because there isn't much activewear for that brand, and she's solving a problem. So really thinking about like, okay, who's our target market and how are we providing for them? So I'm gonna go through here, read through a few comments. Yes, Super Fit Hero, Mary. I love Super Fit Hero. If y'all have a chance, check them out. They are incredible. Ooh, Emily, I love that. I feel like we should all definitely be a little bit more financially aware. I'm trying to be better about my money too. So I'll definitely check this out. Kelly, Zigzag, we're taking, oh my God, I love that. I was just talking about Amazon and I'm like, I do not like Amazon. This is all incredible. Thank you all for adding to the chat. But yeah, another thing that's huge, because this helps you look ahead and think, okay, this is aspirational. What's your brand vision? Where do you want to be? And always thinking about your brand vision. And as you're crafting your story, as you're reaching out, as you're thinking about like your marketing, your social media, really thinking about the aspirational and thinking, okay, how am I going to get there? And really creating content, creating that story to get you there. So target audience, something I've been talking about a lot. Target audience is so important, and it's crucial to be as specific as possible and really dig into like, okay, we are going to be our target audience is going to be millennials. They are going to be between this age and this age. Okay, what are they reading? Where are they at? What type of content are they consuming? And like, how could we add to that story? So you have your target audience, you have your brand vision, you have your mission, you know what problem you're solving. Incredible. Time to build your story. As you're building your story, you need to focus on what is unique about your business, whether the products or services you offer, the product you build, the problems you solve, the way you hire, how you give back. This is all going to help you build that story. Here are a few examples. In terms of when you start reaching out to journalists, they all cover different beats. So it's important to be aware of like, okay, cool. Like this is a problem I'm solving. Great. Well, now you have to do a little bit of research and look at your competitors, because more often than not, a lot of competitors, like when you start doing research, you start to realize how similar a lot of companies are, and how they're using the same keywords, how they're like kind of following the same story and thinking, okay, cool. So you're all saying that you're going to change the world with your product. Well, I mean, that's not going to be as attainable, but fine. But here's what I bring to the table, and making sure that you find the white space to be able to insert yourself into the conversation. Um, Research is one of the most time consuming ones, but I think that it's so important. And then you're able to also keep track of who's writing about these products, right? You're able to think, okay, cool. So I'm doing research for one of our clients in the online training space. So I'm like, okay, cool. Let me research their top 5 competitors, see who's writing about them, keep track of those journalists. So in the research space, you're already like thinking, okay, cool, like this person's writing about this company, but they're also writing about this company. That means that they're covering that same beat, and you're keeping track of that too. But you're also seeing, okay, cool, who's the spokesperson? Who's the person that they like are usually mentioning in these articles? And what's the kind of messaging that they're using? Usually they'll definitely all have similar messaging because of like the story they're telling and the key messages that they're sending to media, right? So you're like, okay, cool, this person is definitely owning this space, and this is how I insert myself into the conversation. um this is definitely crucial to really finalizing and making sure that you have a solid story and messaging. So at the end of it, when you're like, okay, crafting your story, you're probably going to be reaching out. You're going to be saying, hi, like I'm launching my brand, or hey, like reaching out because I have this brand. I'm from LA, Los Angeles, California. You know, I started this company because I am solving this problem. And you're able to, like, in the first few sentences of your pitch, it's like the elevator pitch. So you give an introduction, you're like, hey, I saw that you wrote an article about this. I wanted to introduce you and put this company on your radar. Why do I want to put the company on your radar? Because it is solving this problem. I'm based here. We're a small business, and let me know what you think. So once you have that story crafted, and once you have your elevator pitch, it's going to help you figure out, like, okay, cool. This is what I bring to the table. And that's definitely always going to be within the first few sentences of your pitch. But before we start pitching our media out, we have to build a media kit. So as you're developing your story, you're also creating your About Us page, and you're creating like your history, and you're like, okay, perfect, I'm building my brand story. So why is a media kit so important? Well, a media kit is important because you have all your messaging on there. Let's say you want to start reaching out to media. Well, media usually is working on a bunch of stories at the same time, and like being able to have like a quick bio, being able to have like a quick one sheet, like facts about your business, how you like to be written, the type of tone it has is going to help them really capture your story, and going to help them really write that story in your voice. So it all comes together. So in terms of a media kit, what does it have? So this is usually actually in Dropbox or G Drive, either or, and it's essentially, it just lives in the cloud, and it's something that someone could reference, whether they're doing a founder story and they're like, oh my god, I need your bio. Perfect, it is on there. So essentially we usually have founder bios on there, and if you have any other spokesperson, you put it in there. So you have your bios, your headshots, a quick company history. And this company history, like let's say you have like huge numbers of like making X, Y, and Z sales. Perfect. Put it on there. Make it as compelling as possible. Anything you're proud of, drop it into the company history, because this is a bio that they use to craft your story. A quick one sheet. So a one sheet, essentially, depending if you have any products, this is where you give just like, okay, this is where this is sold. This is how you like follow me on social media. This is how much it costs and all that good stuff. And then depending on the type of announcement you're doing, that's where you add press releases, case studies, product images. Product images on there usually give photographer credit, and essentially it's just a toolbox for media to be like, okay, perfect. I know, like, they'll be able to write a story from this media kit. I saw a question. Oh no, sorry. Let me check the chat real quick. Come on. Oh, sorry, Allison. I thought there was a question. And yeah, so why is it important? Most big businesses have media kits, and it's something that really helps tell your story. And it's something that a journalist could just look up and be like, okay, perfect. And it definitely stops that like back and forth of like, hey, do you have a bio? Hey, I have additional questions about this founder. So yeah, building a media kit is very essential, and it's definitely super helpful. And not even for like media outreach, but also for like social media and like any other sponsorships or partnerships that you might get into the future. It's so crucial. Like if you're going to participate on a panel, usually they'll be like, oh, could you send over bio, headshots, company history, so that they're able to have that information. So it's a little tedious, but as you're building out your story and as you're building out your messaging, all the information is on there. So it's just building blocks and foundational to really beginning that outreach. I talk really fast, so let me see. For the media kit, is it a financial product and not product images suggestions? Okay, Victoria. If it's a financial product and not a product, I think that a quick one sheet is essential. So essentially, if you have a platform, take screenshots of your platform and just give like top facts that you would like someone to know. So it's a financial product. This is the product. This is the problem it's solving. This is how much it is. This is where it's available. And just like anything that could give like a visual to it would be great. Sophie, you work in PR, you know what type of stories. Ooh, I will touch on this question, really great question, Sophie, a little bit later, but it's definitely on my radar and wanna just confirm that I'm seeing it. Victoria, I hope that answered your question. Let me know if you have any other ones. I'll keep this this chat open. Perfect. And then I hope I'm not butchering your name. I'm so sorry if I am. Lucretia Wilderness. That's a really cool last name. Happy that this is helpful. Yeah. So media kits are one of those things that you're going to always need. So the sooner you have it, the better. And since the landscape is always changing, and, you know, try to make it as appealing as possible, just because a lot of people are very driven by like imagery. So the more you could tie it to your branding and make it as inviting as possible, make it. And, you know, remember that it's also telling a story, and it's definitely showcasing your brand. So it's an extension of who you are, your media kit. Okay. Understanding and reaching out to media. So this one, whew, I have so many stories of reaching out to media and just not understanding the difference between freelancers and staff writers and editors, that this is going to save you. So buckle up. So journalist, the media landscape is always changing. Obviously with this last year, there's been a lot of layoffs that journalists are always moving around, and either they're freelancing and are always hustling for another story, or they're working on 10 stories at the same time because budgets have been cut. So one important thing to remember is that journalists are human too. And relationships take so much time. So before you reach out to a journalist, you need to make sure that they're writing on that beat, and to really like be strategic with how you're going to pitch them. Just because I like, now having this experience, I totally understand where they're coming from in terms of like getting a lot of emails every single day that they can't get through them. So it's vital to just really reach out with like the right story, with the right subject line and all that good stuff. But we'll get into that a little bit later. So start with research. As I mentioned before, start keeping track of the people who are writing about your beat and the industry you're in. Because more often than not, they're going to keep on covering that beat. So for example, in the sexual wellness space, usually the writers who cover sexual wellness or any like sex toy roundup are going to be covering it again. So one thing I do is I keep track of like how many stories they're writing. And if I see that they're writing a couple of roundups a month, perfect. I make a note of that and I'm like, okay, I know that I'm going to be sending out like a Mother's Day roundup next week. So I'm going to keep them in my radar and I'm going to make sure that in the subject line, it's like for roundup consideration. Perfect. And I'll reach out to them. And more often than not, sometimes they will reply, or sometimes like you'll just come out on their roundup and they'll be like, oh, hey, here's a story. So they're super busy, and like the more you could be a resource, the better. And the easier you can make their job by like putting it in the subject line, like, oh, hey, this is for roundup consideration, the better. Because more often than not, they'll look at it and be like, okay, perfect, star it, and then come back to it when they have more time or when they're working on the story. So how do you keep track of their information? One thing that I've seen across the board throughout my PR career is always name, email, and beat. And also their Twitter. If y'all are on Twitter, follow journalists because more often than not, they're also on Twitter, like, hey, I'm working on a story and would like recommendations. It's under the hashtag PR requests or hashtag journal requests. I'll put it on the chat towards the end so y'all could like keep track of it. But usually they're on there and they'll say, oh, my DMs are open, or like pitch me here. And that's where you'll find their email. So most of Hearst publications, I'm on Cosmo a lot because that's just where our clients are at. They'll have like the little email icon. You click on it and it gives you the email to them. So let's say you're like, oh, it's not on here. Look up their Twitter. More often than not, it will be on Twitter. Or Instagram has a new feature where if you click on their profile, it has like the little email tab if they make it available. So there's different ways to go about it. There's also LinkedIn. Usually I'll have pretty good luck finding their information either on Twitter or on Instagram. But before you reach out, definitely triple vet it. Be like, okay, cool. So I found this journalist that is covering, I'll give y'all a real life example. So I work with a gym in Portland, and I've been trying to pitch her out as an anti-gym. And in Bustle, I found this new writer who is covering fitness. So I was like, okay, cool. I went to go look at her bio and I saw that she's been writing like nonstop stories on workouts. And I was like, okay, cool. She's my target. I need to know how I'm going to approach her. So I look it up and I can't find her email anywhere. And I was like, okay, cool. Well, I don't really like to slide into the DMs unless I'm like, I need to know what message I'm going to go in with. I need to be really strategic with this just so she doesn't get mad or think I'm overstepping any boundaries. So I ended up following her on Twitter and just like interacting with a few of her posts and like seeing that she was writing more and more about workouts. And I was like, okay, I'm just going to send her a DM. So I sent her a DM and essentially I was just like, hey, I've been reading a few of your bustle pieces. I think they're really great. I just wanted to introduce myself because I work with this gym. And then like that gym is like the anti-gym, very inclusive. And I led with that. I was like, okay, I'm going to lead with what makes my client different. And she ended up getting back to me and she was like, oh, hey, thank you so much for reaching out. Here's my email. Send me the pitch. And I was like, oh my God, this is great. It was the first time I slid into a DM. But yeah, it's like figuring, and everyone's different. Some people are not going to like the DMs and we're just going to stick to emails. But sometimes we have to step out of our comfort zones and just like reach out to them and like be like, hey, look, I've been reading your pieces. And more often than not, they honestly really appreciate that you read their stuff and are able to be like, okay, cool. Like, hey, I read your latest piece. That was incredible. I work with X, Y, and Z. I'm always here as a resource. And approaching them as a resource is definitely the way to go. So a few things to look out for. I know I mentioned freelancers. So essentially, we have the editor. The editor is the one that assigns stories. And they're definitely, depending on the pitch you're doing, they're definitely ones that you want to reach out to specifically for announcements and launches, just because they're the ones that are going to be in charge of assigning the stories. Staff writers. Staff writers, they're usually the ones that are working on 10 stories at once. So let's say they're working on roundups. They're definitely the way to go if specifically you're in products and you're like, okay, well, I see that this person is constantly like working on product roundups. I'm going to have to reach out to them and just like share my product for consideration. And then funding news is another one that is more like tech related. Usually writers at like TechCrunch, VentureBeat, they love numbers. So any sort of announcement that features any numbers, they'll be more inclined to cover it. Oh, and Financial Times is a good one too. Freelancers. Okay. So you've reached out to the editor, you've reached out to the staff writer. Freelancers are definitely a little bit different. Like I said, they're always hustling and they're always pitching their stories out. So they're definitely the type of people who are always like working on a piece and like not only like writing for one publication, but writing for other ones too. And it's important to be mindful with them because they're also charging for copywriting. So it's important to approach them specifically as resources and like, hey, I see that you cover products at Hello Giggles and at Cosmo and at Women's Health. I wanted to put my product in consideration just in case you're working on any upcoming roundups, any like themed stories. If you want any product, let me know and happy to send you some. And like definitely laying it out as a resource or as a, hey, like if you could consider us, great, as opposed to like, hey, like, are you writing any stories about X, Y, and Z? Because more often than not, they get paid to like do any sort of copywriting for other brands. So knowing the difference and knowing who you're reaching out to is very, very important. So types of outreach. Product launches is definitely a lot of what we do. And with product launches, it's important to keep in mind that a lot of media will require like money, right? So some writers will cover product launches. I've had a few of them actually cover a few of ours, but I know Refinery 29 doesn't do product launches, and they told me like a little bit later, and I was like, okay, that makes sense. So I know to only pitch them for roundups because they'll usually do like a lot of different roundups, and they're pretty good about doing small business roundups and like, oh, what you need this summer and all that good stuff. So product launches is one. And that's when you announce like, hey, my brand is launching back to swimwear. We're launching this swimwear that's super eco-friendly and it's made by with sustainable products. It is woman owned, and you like tie it all in. And most publications, because these staff writers are constantly writing about product launches, more often than not, they'll be like, oh my God, thank you for putting this on my radar. I'm going to consider it for like future roundups, or hey, I think I'll be able to cover this. So there's product launches. Roundups is the one I've been talking about a lot because that's definitely a lot of what I do. So that one, most of them are written by commerce writers and commerce editors. So these are the people who their jobs are literally just keeping an eye out on what products to feature on their roundups. So they're definitely the ones we want to go after. And roundups tend to be really seasonal too. So this month we have, this upcoming month, it's Mother's Day. This month we had April. So anything that's eco-friendly, like, oh, these are brands that you should support for Earth Day. I've seen so many roundups about that. Mother's Day is one. In the summer, you have, oh, these are definite or picks that we should wear for summer, or like these are brands that you should shop for summer, swimwear, legging roundups. We're definitely hitting an athleisure where people just love athleisure, and especially like these fashion outlets, they're usually always covering different roundups of, oh, these are leggings you should keep on your radar, this is swimwear you should keep on your radar, and all that good stuff. Funding news, that one is very specific to B2B. And usually if you secure like a good amount of funding, it's something that the tech crunches and the venture beats of the world will want to cover. I'm gonna take a look at the chat because there's 4 different, okay. Oh, Michelle. Okay. So basically the difference between a staff writer and a freelancer, it will tell you, like when you're looking up, like let's say you're like, okay, I'm gonna look up who wrote this, it will let you know on there. So it'll say, oh, this is a staff writer at Hearst. And usually when it has like Hearst or like at Meredith, that's how you know that it's a staff writer. Freelancers will usually have their personal email. So it's usually in the, like when you click on the article, you'll see, okay, it's the name of this writer, and then it'll be like, oh yeah, staff writer, freelancer, editor, and that's how you'll know who they are. Okay, what about reporters? Sharina. Okay, Michelle, great. We should reach out to each of the different types of ones. Okay, so when you're reaching out, this is a great question, Sharina. So I don't like to double pitch because sometimes like you want to spare their inbox. So essentially, I usually go after 2 reporters because more often than not, like especially commerce writers, there's like 5 different writers that are covering that beat. So I will go after 2 writers of the same publication, and if I don't hear back from them, on to the next and go after 2. So I'll work on 2 waves, right? So because they all get assigned different stories, or sometimes they'll get assigned similar stories, like it's good to go after 2 different ones, and then one will more like often than not reply to you, but 2 is definitely the solid number of people to go after. Victoria. So essentially for product launches, you don't need money. So they don't need money. They usually don't cover many product launches unless there's like something monetary tied to it. So something that I'm learning about is affiliate marketing, and affiliate marketing is where they get commission. So whenever you see any of these like big companies that say, oh yeah, this thing just launched and they have like 25% off, it's usually tied to a commission, but it doesn't mean that they're not going to cover it. So for product launches, we are putting it on their radar, but you might not get like a feature piece on it unless it's like a really, really great product. You might just get like a roundup, but it's important to share it for just for awareness. Okay, Sharina, I'm like keeping tab of that. Victoria, let me know if this is helpful, if that answered your question. Sam, I will get into Haro in a little bit. I have it in a few of these upcoming slides. And Sharina, press releases. Yeah, it's important to not send press releases too often. So depending on the announcement that you have, you send out that press release. So in terms of our own clients, I know that when we do product launches or like any huge announcement, it's when we will send a press release. But if it's just like doing product roundups. It's not a press release at all. It's literally just like a little email and just saying, hey, look, like I saw that summer's coming up, so I wanted to put this on your radar. And it doesn't have to be a big story. It could be something really small. Pitching and crafting a story, honestly, it's a lot. So if y'all have any questions, like I have my email and I am happy to answer them and take a deep dive into like crafting your story and all that good stuff. So Victoria, I saw your question. I'm gonna answer it because I'm running out of time. So paid versus organic. So this is something huge media-wise. Everything with PR is usually organic media. Paid media is a totally different field. And if you have the budget, I have my thoughts about it. Sometimes it is helpful, sometimes it isn't. You see bigger brands do paid media, and that's when Dove does like sponsored posts and like sponsored stories. But in PR, we tend to stray away from it unless it's really strategic and if there's budget for it. So moving on to additional ways to reach your audience. I will definitely fly through this and I'll try to get to the questions as soon as possible. Social media, just remember that social media is an extension of PR, an extension of your messaging. So making sure that everything is aligned is always super duper important. The content you create and what you put out on social media, honestly, could sometimes like catch a reporter's attention. I can't tell you how many times, like a lot of our clients, when they first started and they started generating PR attention, it was because of their content. It was because of their products. And it wasn't necessarily like because we pitched them out. Like later on, it's helped us, like we've helped them a lot to get more press. But depending on like your budget and like how you're telling your story, social media is such an incredible tool because we consume a lot of content and your consumer is always going to be on there trying to scroll and like find something new. So definitely leverage those tools. Influencer marketing is always something too that is great. Depending on your product, it might make sense, it might not make sense, sorry. So yeah, community events, sponsorships, podcasts are other big ones. That's another deep dive of like really understanding the podcast space. Remember that sometimes you're not going to have a product launching, and it's like thinking about other ways to continue telling your story and to continue having a touch point for your consumers. Additional tips and tricks, Google Alerts is definitely something that I use on the daily. For all my clients, I usually have a Google alert telling me, okay, this is the story that's being written about workouts or like sexual wellness. And you could make it as specific as possible. And it's super duper helpful so that you know, okay, perfect, this is what's being written about right now. And like, how can I add to the conversation? Sorry, y'all. Haro, I've seen this in the questions. I know, Sam, I am going to answer your question right now. Oh no, was it Sharina or Sam? Oh, it was Sam. Okay. Haro is a hit or miss. So actually one of my coworkers was telling me about it and she was talking about how Haro is all a game of like replying to the reporter as soon as possible and making sure that this is where your branding and your messaging and your tagline come in handy. So these journalists are getting flooded with so many responses that you're just like, okay, perfect. Reply within like the 30-minute window and really like lay it out, share your elevator pitch and just like try to catch their attention. But honestly, like I don't depend too much on Haro. It's definitely brought me really good relationships, but it's a hit or miss. And then if you constantly see this reporter posting on Haro, you're able to identify them. And honestly, like one thing I do is like, I'll research their name and I'm like, okay, perfect. Like Amy at Parade is usually covering gift guides and roundups. I'm going to keep an eye on them and I'm going to like find out their information and I'm going to email them with our roundup consideration in the future. So Haro, it's really helpful. Honestly, like I have it and I'll skim through it. And like that also helps me see like, okay, what are journalists writing about? And it's very much like it's helpful. We definitely use it at the agency. But my best advice is to like have a great elevator pitch, be straight to the point, links, and reply within like that 30 to 1 hour frame. Because sometimes I'll reply like I want to say 2 hours later and it'll like expire. And I'm like, what the hell? It had like a deadline of 2 days from now. And then always, okay, one thing. I know that usually with deadlines, they're like, okay, like I have 2 days. No, send it as soon as possible and try to beat that deadline. Because, like I said, it's a competition and it's a rat's race of who gets their attention. So that's Haro. Let me see. Oh, Sam. Awesome. So Q&A time. We made it through. I know I went through a lot, and like I said, if you guys have any questions, please don't hesitate to like reach out to me. Happy to answer all of them. I'll also link y'all to my LinkedIn so you could drop any questions. It's a lot. This is a crash course, and one thing that I really want to leave you with is don't be discouraged. This is a lot to take on, but I know that y'all can do it. And it's not something you do every day. Like if you could give yourself like carve out some time at the end of the week to think about, okay, cool, let me see what's going on in the news. Who can I reach out to? Oh, there's like a story that I think I could like provide insight to. Reach out, step out of your comfort zone. And honestly, like it takes time, but it's doable. So one thing I want to challenge y'all to do is to share your story, whether it be via socials, reaching out to a journalist you admire. Word of mouth is so helpful. And yeah, like reach out to your network, leverage it, step out of your comfort zone. You are your own publicist always. And I know that y'all are doing incredible things. I love Ladies Who Launch. I think that they're doing incredible work, and don't be afraid of rejection at all. That's something as publicists that I've definitely learned. Someone will want to tell your story. We just have to be patient, and we're going to get a lot of no's in our search for a journalist that wants to hear us, but you will get something, and you just have to be patient. Remember, we're planting a seed and it will blossom into a beautiful tree. And yeah, that's pretty much it for me. Let me check out the chat real quick, Allison, to see if there was, oh,
Yeah, there's been some great stuff happening in the chat. I love to see how active it is and how many questions are popping up throughout. I saw one question that Victoria threw in the Q&A box a few minutes ago. She said, for the media kit, if it is a financial product and not a product image, what suggestions do you have for the media kit? So is this something where maybe like showcasing in a visual way, like a case study would be a good option?
Yes, case studies, anything visual that you could showcase, do it. Anything visual, any like if you have a platform, take a screenshot of that platform. We worked with a dating app, and their media kit was just like screenshots of the software and a little bit about the dating app, the differentiators, how many users they have, where it's available, how much it costs, the plot, like the software it was available in, and all that good stuff. It's an extension of your brand. It's important to remember that with the media kit, and whatever visuals you have to like help tell your story, great, because it's what the journalists use to like craft their stories about you.
Amazing. Cool. And I see one of these in here right at the bottom from Mariana, if we will be able to share slides in the recording. I know that we'll definitely be sharing the recording. We've been taping along this whole time. Nancy gave us so much information past what is just in the slides. So we'd obviously love to let you all have this to kind of go back and listen to it again or take notes or whatever you need to do. All right. Does anyone have any last minute questions? We have about 3 minutes left. So if we accidentally missed one here in the chat and you want to throw it in there one more time, please feel free.
Yes, thank you all again for attending. I see some familiar faces. Makes me really happy.
Well, it looks like we have one more good one here in the Q&A box from Maria. She said, "Hi, Nancy. Is there one thing you wish you'd known prior to doing PR? A tip you wish you had before you started your journey?"
Oh, that is such a great question. Yeah, I feel like understanding, like, I wish I would have understand like branding a lot better and like how to tell your story. And I think like not even in business, but more so like personally me, I feel like it's helped me like flourish and not like really own into what I bring to the table. And like, yeah, I wish I would have had like more confidence coming into PR and just like a better understanding of how the world works. But I feel like it's definitely given me a lot of confidence and like, okay, cool, like understanding what everyone brings to the table, understanding the media landscape, and just like helping people tell their stories, just because I feel like there's a lack of accessibility to this information and to these resources. And it's only available to like these huge companies. And it's like these huge companies don't need this. Like these resources should be made available to everyone. And yeah.
Totally. There is one more good question just rolled in. One last one. All
Okay.
right. So Sharina asked, sometimes the journalist can be snappy. If you do annoy the journalist with too many pitches, how do you go about fixing that relationship?
Thank you, Sharina. I forgot to say two follow-ups, and that's it. So you send out a pitch, you're like, hey, kindly following up, just making sure that you saw this. They don't reply. That's it. Let it lay low. Honestly, I've gotten a lot of snappy journalists, and like the best thing you could do is like just let it simmer for a little bit. Give it like I want to say 3 months before you reach out to them again, and definitely like depending on how they go, like some journalists will be very upfront and they'll be like, hey, take me off your list. Perfect. Never reach out to them again. But more often than not, honestly, like I know that a lot of journalists don't like to hear, hey, sorry for this. It's more so like, totally understand. I'll reach out to you and be more strategic when it makes sense. So giving it a little bit of time and honestly, just like reaching out a little bit later and just being really strategic. It depends on like what it is that you want to follow up about. So Sharina, if you want, you can email me and I could help you like figure out how to reply to them, but it's a case by case basis for sure. And they're human, they know we're human. An apology is worth a million words, honestly, and just like not reaching out to them the same way you did last time could go a long way.
Amazing. Cool. Well, it is just about time. Thank you, everyone. Thank you especially to Nancy. We're so excited to have this one. I personally feel like I learned a ton. I hope everybody else feels like they did too. As Nancy said, feel free to reach out to her via email, which is right here, nancy@rebelliousPR.com. You can also reach out to hello@ladieswholaunch.org if you have any other questions to shoot our way. Otherwise, thank you all for coming. Enjoy the rest of your morning, afternoon, evening, whatever time zone you may be in. And we will see you all on the flip side.
Bye, everyone. Thank you so much for your time. Don't hesitate to reach out. And remember, you are your best publicist. You've all got this. Hugs. Bye, y'all.
Bye.